At Ashe, Jane also became acquainted with a member of the LEFROY family who was still living there when I began these memoirs a few months ago. The Right Honourable Thomas LEFROY, late Chief Justice of Ireland. One must look back more than 70 years to reach the time when these two bright young persons were, for a short time, intimately acquainted with each other, and then separated on their separate courses, never to meet again, both destined to achieve some distinction in their different ways, one to survive the other for more than half a century, yet in his extreme old age, to remember and to speak, as he sometimes did, of his former companion, as one to be much admired, and not easily forgotten by those who had ever known her. Mrs. LEFROY herself was a remarkable person. Her rare endowments of goodness, talents, graceful person, and engaging manners were sufficient to secure her a prominent place in any society into which she was thrown, while her enthusiastic eagerness of disposition rendered her especially attractive to a clever and lively girl. She was killed by a fall from her horse on Jane's birthday, December the 16th, 1804. Lines to her memory were written by Jane 4 years afterwards. The loss of their first home is generally a great grief to young persons of strong feeling and lively imagination, and Jane was exceedingly unhappy when she was told that her father, now 70 years of age, had determined to resign his duties to his eldest son, who was to be his successor in the regency of Steventon, and to remove with his wife and daughters to Bath. Jane had been absent from home when this resolution was taken, and as her father was always rapid both in forming his resolutions and in acting on them, she had little time to reconcile herself to the change. A wish has sometimes been expressed that some of Jane Austen's letters should be published. Some entire letters and many extracts will be given in this memoir, but the reader must be warned not to expect too much from them. With regard to accuracy of language, indeed every word of them might be printed without correction. The style is always clear and generally animated, while a vein of humour continually gleams through the whole. But the materials may be thought inferior to the execution, for they treat only of the details of domestic life. There is in them no notice of politics or public events, scarcely any discussions on literature or other subjects of general interest. They may be said to resemble the nest which some little bird builds of the materials nearest of hand, of the twigs and mosses supplied by the tree in which it is placed, curiously constructed out of the simplest matters. Her letters have very seldom the date of the year or the signature of her Christian name at full length, but it has been easy to ascertain their dates, either from the postmark or from their contents. The two following letters are the earliest that I have seen. They were both written in November 1800, before the family removed from Steventon. Some of the same circumstances are referred to in both. The first is to her sister Cassandra, who was then staying with their brother Edward at Godmersham Park, Kent. Steventon, Saturday evening, November the 8th. My dear Cassandra, I thank you for so speedy a return to my two last, and particularly thank you for your anecdote of Charlotte Graham and her cousin Harriet Bailey, which has very much amused both my mother and myself. If you can learn anything farther of that interesting affair, I hope you will mention it. I have 2 messages. Let me get rid of them, and then my paper will be my own. Mary fully intended writing to you by Mr. Shoots Frank, and only happened to entirely forget it, but will write soon. And my father wishes Edward to send him a memorandum of the price of the hops. The tables are come and give general contentment. I had not expected that they would so perfectly suit the fancy of us all 3, or that we should so well agree in the disposition of them, but nothing except their own surface can have been smoother. The two ends put together form one constant table for everything, and the centrepiece stands exceedingly well under the glass and holds a great deal most commodiously without looking awkwardly. They are both covered with green baize and send their best love. The Pembroke has got its destination by the sideboard, and my mother has great delight in keeping her money and papers locked up. The little table which used to stand there has most conveniently taken itself off into the best bedroom, and we are now in want only of the chiffoniere, which is neither furnished nor come. So much for that subject. I now come to another of a very different nature, as other subjects are very apt to be. Earl Harwood has been again giving uneasiness to his family and talk to the neighbourhood. In the present instance, however, he is only unfortunate and not in fault. About 10 days ago, in cocking a pistol in the guard-room at Marcow, he accidentally shot himself through the thigh. 2 young Scotch surgeons in the island were polite enough to propose taking off the thigh at once, but to that he would not consent, and accordingly in his wounded state he was put on board a cutter and conveyed to Haslar Hospital